the fog hides more than the trees. It hides the things waiting just beyond sight, voices that whisper your name when no one is there, and shadows that move when the world is still. Tonight, 6 stories take you deep into the woods and deeper into the dark, where the silence is only broken by whispers you were never meant to hear. It began like any other night, a walk beneath the trees, the kind you think will clear your mind. But the woods grow different when the fog rolls in, paths twist, shapes change, and before long you're not walking alone. This is the story of a girl who stepped into the foggy woods and found something waiting for her there. The air was thick with mist as Clara stepped onto the narrow path leading into the old woods. It was said the forest had a mind of its own, shifting and turning when you weren't looking, swallowing travelers whole. But Clara was not superstitious. She was there for a weekend of solitude to connect with nature, away from the noise of the city. As she walked deeper, the trees grew denser, their twisted branches clawing at the sky like gnarled fingers. A chill settled in her bones, but she pressed on, determined to reach a small clearing she had heard about. With each step, the sunlight seemed to fade, shadows stretching and pulling at her perception of time. She came to a clearing, its center dominated by a gnarled old tree. The bark cracked like old leather and something about it drew her in. Kneeling beside it, she noticed what seemed to be markings, symbols carved into the wood, symbols that looked both familiar and distant. Clara traced a finger along one, feeling a shiver run up her spine as it pulsed beneath her touch, as if alive. Suddenly she heard a rustling. The sound was distant, but echoed louder, and she turned, scanning the tree line for movement. A low, whispering voice filled the air, beckoning her with soft, melodic tones. Join us, it sang rhythmically like a lullaby. Her heart raced, fear gnawed at her thoughts, pushing her instincts to flee. But curiosity anchored her feet to the ground. The whispers grew more insistent. Stay with us, they called, gently promising warmth, a sense of belonging. She stepped back, the fog thickening around her, weaving in and out of her vision. Shadows danced, shifting, and through them, glowing eyes emerged, dozens of them staring and blinking in unison as if they had been waiting for her. Clara's mind raced, her logical thoughts battling against a primal urge drawing her closer. The tree loomed ominously, and she could almost feel its hunger, an insatiable craving. Stay, the voice whispered, wrapping around her like silk, binding her with unseen threads. As she fell to her knees, captivated, the shadows swirled closer. Only then did she notice their forms, twisted figures made of bark and stone, merging with the mist. They reached for her, but not with hands. They extended tendrils of smoke that coiled around her wrists like shackles, tugging her toward the tree. She gasped, struggling to resist. The markings on the tree pulsed aggressively now, the whispers rising to a cacophony. Join us, Clara, become one of us. Panic surged through her as she fought against their grasp, her arms straining as they pulled. With an adrenaline-fueled scream, Clara broke free and raced back down the path, her chest heaving, the whispers trailing off into angry hisses behind her. But beyond the clearing, the forest felt different. The path twisted underfoot, the trees closing in as if mocking her escape. Clara's heart pounded as she ran headlong, but no matter how fast she ran, the trees merely shifted, confounding her sense of direction, leading her deeper rather than closer to freedom. As night fell, the mist thickened into a shroud, smothering her with darkness. Desperation clawed at her throat. She could hear them, those whispers, calling her name softly now, laced with a familiar intimacy, weaving into her mind, planting seeds of doubt. Clara, you belong with us, it insisted in a voice she swore she recognized. You can't escape. Then, through the disorienting fog, she caught sight of something bright, a flickering light. Something in her soul stirred with hope as she sprinted towards it, but as she burst through the brush, she froze. It was the clearing again, with that old tree, its branches forming twisted hands reaching out, welcoming her back. The pulse of the tree slowed, and the forest fell silent, allowing a deep, suffocating peace to envelop her. The shadows encircled her once more, and she felt a heaviness in her heart, a creeping acceptance. "Join us," they sang, now in perfect harmony. For in the darkness of that ancient woods, Clara wasn't fleeing but returning, the pulse of the tree syncing with her own. As her thoughts faded, the last remnants of her identity slipping away, a voice as soft as morning mist whispered, "Welcome home. Our journey through the woods isn't over yet." Ahead lies a lonely cabin, hidden beneath the trees, holding secrets no one was meant to uncover. Let's step inside. In the heart of a fog-shrouded forest, there existed a dilapidated cabin, long abandoned and shunned by the locals. Whispers danced through the trees, tales of a presence that lingered in the stillness. No one dared to visit, despite the pull of curiosity that lay heavy in the air. One autumn evening, compelled by an insatiable need to confront his fears, a young man named Derek decided to explore the forsaken cabin. As he approached, the brittle leaves crunched beneath his feet, each sound swallowed by the oppressive quiet. The moonlight struggled to pierce the thick fog, casting an eerie glow that painted the pitch-black shadows into a swirling dance of shapes. He felt a shiver snake down his spine, the air thick with foreboding. The cabin loomed before him, its wooden planks warped and covered in layers of moss, as if nature itself sought to reclaim the space. Pushing the creaking door open, he stepped inside. The gloom engulfed him, and the stale air reeked of decay. His flashlight beam flickered, illuminating dust-covered furniture and darkened corners that seemed to breathe. Patterns of mildew spread across the walls, resembling lurking figures. Derek's heart raced, but he pressed on, a mix of dread and exhilaration propelling him deeper into the cabin's bowels. As he explored, he noticed a strange symbol carved into the floor, a circle surrounded by cryptic runes worn by time. The instinct to turn back clawed at him, but he felt magnetized by the bizarre etching suspended between fear and fascination. Moments passed, his heartbeat thudding loudly, echoing through the silence. When a sudden cold breeze swept through the room, it felt alive, intertwining with his very essence. Derek turned sharply toward the window, feeling a gaze pierce through the fog. For just a fleeting moment, he thought he saw a figure standing there, cloaked in shadows, its face obscured. Panic surged. Was he really alone? He backpedaled, eyes darting toward the exit, but the door slammed shut, echoing like thunder in the hushed space. He pounded on the door, adrenaline surging. But it wouldn't budge. The air thickened, pressing down on him like a weight. The flashlight flickered again, and in the dim light, surrounded by towering darkness, he could sense a shape coiling just beyond the reach of his vision, something watching, waiting. The room felt like it was swelling, squeezing him tighter until the walls cracked and whispered his name, a soft, taunting echo that made his skin crawl. Suddenly, Derek sprinted toward the corner, heart racing, desperate to escape. But something blocked his path, a wall of impenetrable darkness. He turned to look behind him, only to find the figure now closer, emerging from the shadows, draped in tattered cloth that flowed like smoke. Its face was obscured, but he could feel its eyes boring into him, filled with ancient malice. "Let me go," he shouted, voice trembling, backing away into the cold embrace of the wall. The figure did not move, but an awful dread churned in his stomach. It lifted a finger, pointing straight at him. Fear wrapped around him like a noose when he heard a voice, a low, chilling whisper that whispered fragments of his deepest, darkest fears, playing with his mind. "You can't escape yourself," it hissed, and with that the world spun. The walls melted into darkness, wrapping around him like a shroud until he could no longer discern where he began, and the darkness ended. The last thing he felt was a surge of weightlessness. Derek awoke outside the cabin, a cold sweat soaking his shirt. The panic from his dream echoed in his mind as he gazed back at the cabin, now the night sky twinkling innocently above. For a fleeting second, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. But in the silence of the woods, he heard it, a soft, familiar whisper riding the wind. "You can't escape yourself." He froze, the realization slamming into him like an icy wave. Turning abruptly, he stumbled away, only to find that every path led back to the cabin. The cabin was no longer abandoned in whispers. It was alive, watching him, waiting for the moment he would slip back inside, breaking like glass on the edge of an endless night. The fog has a way of swallowing sound, of making every step feel like trespass. For some it's only mist, but for others, it becomes a wall between the world they know and something far older that waits beyond it. This is the story of one who stepped deeper and found what the fog was hiding. In thick from the woods, wrapping the small town of Eldridge in a suffocating shroud. A dusting of twilight settled over the streets, as street lamps flickered uncertainly, casting weary shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. Jennifer, a newcomer, had always found comfort in solitude, but now, a chill crawled along her spine, men urging her to lock her doors tightly against the encroaching night. She adjusted the collar of her jacket and stepped outside, cool air biting at her skin. The woods loomed ominously at the edge of town, dark silhouettes of ancient trees standing sentinel. She glanced at the path leading into the heart of the forest, where tales of lost wanderers echoed in hushed tones. Eldridge was steeped in ghost stories, each family having their own tale of tragedy and despair, but Jennifer dismissed them as mere folklore. As she made her way to the local diner for a warm meal, the fog thickened around her ankles, swirling like restless spirits. The air felt alive, charged as if something was watching. A shudder traversed her body, and she quickened her pace, the comforting glow of the diner barely visible in the distance. Inside, the walls were lined with faded photographs, their faces frozen in time, their eyes following her movements. The few patrons, a pair of old men and a solitary woman, sat in silence, avoiding her gaze. She ordered a coffee, trying to shake the feeling of being an intruder in this strange place. But the waitress, with her hollow eyes and weary smile, leaned in close and whispered, "Stay away from the woods." Jennifer's heart raced. "What?" she asked, but the waitress simply moved away as if the question did not merit an answer. With each sip of coffee, the unsettling atmosphere thickened, and her mind reeled with curiosity and dread. As she managed small talk with the men, they shifted uneasily. "You'll learn," one murmured, looking toward the window. "The woods take things and sometimes give them back." He let the implication hang heavy in the air before turning back to the table. Defiance sparked within her. "I'm not afraid," she declared, rising to leave. The old men exchanged knowing glances, but she brushed past them, the cold grip of fog trailing behind her. As she approached the edge of the woods, a small storm of apprehension clutched at her chest. The treetops swayed gently, almost beckoning her in, whispers swirling like the fog around her. Just a peek, she told herself, stepping onto the path. Each step deeper into the woods felt like an unraveling thread, her heartbeat echoing against the silence. Then a low rustling came from her left. She spun around, but there was nothing but darkness. Pressing on, a strange sound emerged from within the trees, a melodic humming that seemed to call to her. She followed it, each footfall feeling heavier, as if the ground itself resisted her intrusion. The air shifted, and for a fleeting moment she glimpsed a figure, pale, almost ethereal, dancing just beyond the reach of the fog. Its movements were fluid, hypnotic, drawing her closer. "Is someone there?" she shouted, her voice swallowed by the thickening mist. The humming stopped abruptly, replaced by silence so profound it felt alive. Panic surged in her throat, and she spun back the way she came. But the path was gone. The trees, towering and gnarled, twisted into shapes that loomed over her, stretching and shifting as if they were alive. A chill spread through her. What was it they had said in the diner? The woods take things. As the fog twisted and coiled around her ankles, the whispers returned, now filled with laughter, echoes of those who had wandered in before her. She stumbled, heart racing, and met the gaze of the woman from the diner, her eyes now hollow and devoid of light, as she stood upon the very path that had led Jennifer astray. "I told you," the figure said, lips curling into an unsettling smile. "Welcome back." Jennifer's scream was swallowed by the woods, and the fog rolled in thick once more, leaving nothing but rustling leaves behind. The town of Eldridge continued its quiet existence, blissfully unaware of another soul lost to the fog. The fog only thickened, and what it concealed became darker still. Beyond the trees, the whispers began. They echoed from cabins, from willows, from the very shadows themselves, drawing the lost deeper into a silence that was never truly empty. Our next 3 stories take us there, to the voices in the fog that should never have been heard. Some cabins feel abandoned, but others feel like they've been waiting, standing in the fog like a secret, hidden for a reason. When she stumbled upon the cabin that night, she thought she had found shelter. Instead, she had stepped into something that was already awake and aware of her. In the heart of an overgrown forest, the shadows lengthened, weaving between the twisted branches and gnarled roots. Ferns whispered secrets in the unsettling breeze, and a thick fog drifted like a shroud, veiling everything in an ethereal pallor. Emily, a young woman with a penchant for exploration, had heard tales of a forgotten cabin deep within these woods, a place where the past lingered even after the living had moved on. With her heart racing and a mix of excitement and dread churning in her stomach, she ventured down the winding path, each step echoing with the crunch of dried leaves and the rustle of unseen creatures hiding just out of sight. The deeper she wandered, the more the oppressive silence wrapped around her, as if the forest were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Finally she spotted it. A dilapidated cabin, half swallowed by the earth and creeping vines. The windows were cracked and dark, resembling sunken eyes peering into a world they could no longer comprehend. Squaring her shoulders, she approached, her breath hitching at the thought of what she might uncover within. The door creaked open, a long-forgotten invitation filled with a musty scent of decay and memory. Inside, the air was thick with dust, each particle illuminated by slivers of light breaking through the dirty windows. Old furniture lay strewn about like the remnants of a failed life, an overturned chair, a cracked mirror reflecting only the gloom around her. Emily's pulse quickened, alternating between fear and curiosity. She pressed forward, drawn to a staircase, its steps sagging under the weight of countless unacknowledged secrets. As she ascended, the wood groaned beneath her, and a chill flickered across her skin, almost beckoning her to turn back. But something pulled her onward, an insatiable need to uncover what lay at the top. There she discovered a small room, its walls lined with portraits of somber faces. They appeared to watch her, their expressions frozen in sorrow, as if warning her that some doors are best left unopened. Then she noticed a peculiar painting in the corner, different from the others. It was an eerie depiction of a girl with hauntingly familiar features, a girl who could have been Emily herself, captured in a moment of despair beneath a darkened sky. A wave of nausea washed over her, and instinctual alarm bells ringing in her mind. The air turned heavy, pressing against her chest as she stumbled back, wanting to escape, to flee before whatever presence resided there ensnared her. But then she heard it, a soft, almost innocuous whisper drifting through the air, the words threading like a spider's web around her mind. "Stay with me," it beckoned, a voice laced with despair and longing. Terrified, Emily spun around only to find no one there, the empty room echoing her panic. The whisper intensified, swirling until it filled her mind, drowning her in a sea of voices, a cacophony of pleading, sorrow, and rage. "Stay with me, I won't let you leave." Emily turned to flee, scrambling down the staircase in a frenzy. Each step felt as if she was being dragged back, an invisible force tethering her to the cabin's dark history. The door wouldn't budge, it slammed shut as though it had a will of its own. Panic surged through her, and she slammed against it, desperate for freedom, her breath quickening until the room spun. Just when she thought the force would crush her, it relented, the door creaking open as if releasing her for having passed the test of will. She stumbled into the forest, the daylight bathing her in a false sense of safety. Heart racing, she sprinted back the way she came, branches scratching at her sides, the whispers now a chorus, warning her she was not alone. As she broke free from the trees, fear coursed through her as she glanced back just once, expecting the cabin to remain hauntingly still. Instead, it was gone, the ground where it stood just bare earth and broken branches. In the place of the forgotten structure was an unsettling quiet, as if the forest was inhaling deeply, ready to purge the truth buried within. Days turned to weeks, and no matter how far she ran, she felt its presence shadowing her. The whispers never ceased, weaving through her thoughts, growing louder at night when she was most vulnerable. Yesterday she saw her reflection in a mirror, and for the first time, it didn't quite reflect her. The girl with familiar features stared back, smile twisted and eyes pleading. "Stay with me." The echo danced along her spine, now a familiar lullaby. And one wind-strewn night, when the air felt especially thick with intrigue, she found herself drawn back to the edge of those woods, compelled to rejoin the shadows. What had once been a heart full of fright was now bubbling with a morbid curiosity. Perhaps it was time to answer the call. Our journey continues. The fog grows thicker, and this next place hides a secret rooted deep in the earth, beneath the shadow of an old willow tree. Let's step closer. The fog rolled in thick as night descended upon the little town of Eldermere. The streets, usually bustling with life, lay ominously empty, the only sound being the distant echo of a clock striking 8. Lydia clutched her coat tightly around her, the chill seeping through the fabric into her very bones. She could almost taste the dampness in the air, a metallic tang that made her stomach turn. She walked towards the edge of town, the fog wrapped around her like a shroud, soothing and suffocating at once. The old willow tree loomed ahead, its gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. It was a spot children dared each other to visit, a place whispered about in hushed tones, the Willow of Whispers. Lydia had heard the tales growing up, that at night it spoke to those who dared to listen. Curiosity gnawed at her. What would it be like to hear the whispers? Surely they were just stories born from the imaginations of anxious children. She stepped closer, the damp ground squelching beneath her boots, her heart racing with both fear and thrill. Suddenly the whisper began. It felt like a breeze brushing past her ear, too soft to catch the words. She strained to hear, stepping closer to the tree. "Lydia," it called, the voice unmistakably familiar. It was the voice of her late mother, gentle yet urgent. "Come closer." Chills danced up her spine. She hesitated, doubt creeping in. The tales spoke of those who lost their way, never to return. But the sound of her mother's voice was too enticing. She stepped forward, tears building in her eyes, longing to feel that connection once more. "Mom," she whispered, her breath fogging in the cool air. "Is that really you?" "Yes, dear. It's me," the voice echoed softly. "I'm waiting for you. Come get me. Together we can leave this place. I have missed you so much." Lydia's heart pounded as she reached out, fingers trembling as they brushed against the rough bark of the willow. She could almost imagine her mother standing just beyond the veil of fog, waiting with open arms. The air felt electric, charged with a longing she could barely comprehend. But then came the realization, cold and abrupt. "No," she gasped, pulling back as the whispers shifted into something darker. Distorted laughter slithered through the fog, wrapping around her like a noose. The familiar warmth of her mother's voice twisted into a demand, sharp and sinister. "Come, Lydia, you're so close now. Just take my hand." Panic surged through her and she turned to run, but the air thickened, weighing down her legs, roots from the tree snaking outwards, grabbing at her heels. The laughter grew, echoing her fear. The whispers turned into a cacophony of voices, overlapping and indistinguishable. She stumbled, trying to break free from the binds of the tree, but it felt like they were merging with her, pulling her into their realm. "Stay with us," the voices beckoned. "Forever." With a last, desperate scream, Lydia ripped away from the grasp, her spirit screaming even louder. She ran blindly, guided only by the pinpricks of terror igniting every sense. The fog seemed to part, leading her back toward town. But as she emerged from the mist swirling behind her, her heart sank. The streets were empty as if all life had been drained away. The clock tower stood eerily silent. The warm lights in the windows of houses flickered out one by one, leaving her in darkness as if the entire town had vanished. She stumbled to a stop, gasping for breath, alone and isolated in this sudden void. Taking a shaky breath, she looked back towards the willow tree. The whispers were gone, though she felt their presence lingering, insistent. And then, standing right where she had escaped, she saw her mother, or what resembled her. A gaunt, hollow face with eyes too bright, holding out a hand that was not hers to take. The apparition smiled, the corners of its mouth twisting into something grotesque. "Lydia," it sang, the fog billowing behind with an unsettling energy. "You've come home." As a shiver racked her body, she realized with dawning horror that home was no longer a place she could return to. With a final echoing laugh, the town of Eldermere faded into the mist, leaving Lydia forever lost in the whispers of the darkness. Some voices comfort us, others guide us, but in the woods, there are voices that don't belong to anything human. They echo in the fog, pulling you closer until you can't tell if you're being led or hunted. This final story takes us to a place where the whispers had no face, no form, only hunger. The forest was thick with mist, a veil that swallowed sound and light alike. Lucy had wandered off the well-trodden path, lured by a whispering voice, barely audible amid the rustling leaves. She had always felt drawn to the woods, a pull that thrummed in her veins, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. But something was different today. As she pushed farther into the thicket, the atmosphere shifted, charged with an unnameable dread. The trees twisted overhead, their branches curling like gnarled fingers reaching for her. Shadows danced along the ground, flickering in and out of her view like restless spirits. Lucy called out, hoping to hear a familiar reply, but the only sound was the soft crunch of dead leaves beneath her feet. She shivered, a chill creeping down her spine that had nothing to do with the cool air. "Hello." She ventured again, her voice sounding small in the suffocating silence. A faint echo met her ears, but it wasn't her own. The voice was too soft, too melodic, winding through the trees, coaxing her deeper into the woods. Against her better judgment, Lucy followed. The deeper she ventured, the thicker the mist became, wrapping around her like a shroud. She pressed on, the voice now a part of her, promising secrets if she would only come closer. Goosebumps erupted on her arms as she pressed through thorny underbrush, the thorns grasping at her clothes as if trying to hold her back. She paused for a moment, glancing back toward the path she had come from, but the way was gone, swallowed by the fog. Suddenly, the whisper grew clearer, more demanding. "Help me." It was a plea, one that sent a jolt of urgency through her. Lucy quickened her pace, heart racing as she felt the thrum of something ancient and powerful pulsing in the earth beneath her feet. She stumbled into a small clearing, the fog swirling thickly around her, and in the center stood an old well, its stones slick with moss. The voice emanated from within its dark depths, resonant with sorrow. "Help me. Retrieve what was lost." Lucy felt an inexplicable compulsion to approach, drawn by the promise of a truth concealed in the darkness. She peered over the edge, seeing only the abyss that lay below. "What do you need?" she called down, her voice a fragile thread against the overwhelming silence. "Your soul," the voice hissed, now laced with malice. "Give it to me and I will set you free." Lucy staggered back, a scream clawing at her throat. The air in the clearing chilled, the fog coiling tighter, revealing shadowy figures that danced just beyond her line of sight, their faces obscured, their eyes glinting with feral anticipation. Panic surged through her as she turned to run, but the shadows were faster, closing the distance, cloaked in ethereal mist. They grasped at her, brushing against her skin like ice. "You cannot leave," one whispered, its breath foul and rotten. Join us, become one with the whispers of the woods. Lucy fought with all her strength, tearing through the mist, yet the trees seemed to shift, blocking her path, warping the world around her. Desperation clawed at her chest. She was trapped, ensnared by the very essence of the forest that had once drawn her in. In her struggle, she caught glimpses of faces in the shadows before her, lost souls, their mouths stretching into silent screams. Then, as if the forest itself recoiled from her fear, the shadows faded momentarily, revealing the well once more. The voice called again, seductive and terrifying. "It's your only chance, save yourself." They promised her everything, the escape from despair, yet the truth lay thick in the air now. She was not the first. Lucy could feel it, the weight of countless souls entwined with her own, urging her to give in. Heart pounding, she took a step back, defiance igniting in her chest. No, she would not become another whisper in the woods. But as she turned away, the mist closed in again, swallowing her screams as the shadows surged around her. The last thing she heard was the echoing laughter that filled the forest, the cold grip of realization washing over her. Deep in the woods, she realized with horror that they were right. She would never leave. The voice was now her own, lost among the whispers. 6 stories, 6 reminders that the fog doesn't just hide the forest, it hides everything we fear. From the paths we should never walk, to the voices we should never answer, these woods are never empty. If these tales left you unsettled, consider joining us here in the vault for more. Subscribe, leave a like, and turn on the bell, so you never miss the next time we open the shadows. Until then, keep your ears open, and never trust the whispers.